For the longest time, I thought I really understood how money and finance worked. But then I came across this silent, almost invisible engine that powers pretty much all massive fortunes. It's so powerful, it's actually been called the eighth wonder of the world. Okay, let's really get into this.
This quote, this right here, is the whole ball game. There is one single idea that if you can truly wrap your head around it, explains almost everything about building serious wealth. It's the power of compounding. But here's the catch. Our own instincts, everything our brain tells us about how things should work, it fights against this idea. It just sounds too slow or maybe too good to possibly be real.
To see this thing in action, we're going to take a look at the greatest investor of our time, Warren Buffett. Now, most people who study him, they make this one critical mistake. They obsess over what he bought. They dig through his stock picks trying to find some secret formula, but they are looking in completely the wrong place.
So let's be super clear. For this explainer, we are going to completely ignore every single stock he ever picked. Think of this as a cautionary tale against focusing on finding that one genius stock pick. Instead, we're going to focus on the one single variable that is so much more powerful, and it's the one thing that any of us can actually control: time.
Because the real secret to his unbelievable wealth, it wasn't some ridiculously complex financial strategy. Nope. It was a simple decision he made when he was just a kid. It wasn't about what he did, it was all about when he started doing it.
Now, what's really fascinating when you look at this slide is just how, unimpressive the first few decades seem. He starts investing seriously at age 10. By the time he's 30, he's a millionaire. Which is great, but it's not changing the world, right? Even at age 50, his net worth is just a tiny, tiny sliver of the final number. The vast majority of his wealth, we're talking over 99% of it, was earned after his 50th birthday.
And this chart just perfectly illustrates the whole point. Let's just imagine for a second that he had a more normal start. What if he spent his teens and 20s, just figuring life out, and only got serious about investing at age 30? Well, if he earned the exact same returns, but just started 20 years later, his final net worth wouldn't be over $84 billion. It would be a tiny fraction of that, maybe around $300 million. I mean, still a staggering amount of money for sure, but absolutely nowhere near the reality.
So, what was the real price of that 20-year delay? Over $83 billion. That's the power hidden in those first 2 decades, back when the numbers looked so small and almost insignificant. That is the power of compounding.
Now, if you're looking at these numbers and thinking to yourself, that just can't be right, I totally get it. It feels wrong. And the reason it feels wrong isn't your fault. Our brains are simply not wired to understand this kind of growth.
See, we are hardwired to think in straight lines. We think if I put in 10 years of work, I get 10 years of results. That's linear. But wealth from compounding, it just doesn't work that way. It's exponential. It works in this curve that starts off painfully slow, and then all of a sudden it just explodes upwards in a way that honestly feels like magic.
Here's an analogy that might make it feel a little more natural. Think about a giant redwood tree. For the first few years, maybe even the first few decades, all the really important work is happening underground, where you can't even see it. The roots are spreading out, building this massive foundation. The tree itself looks tiny, but that invisible foundation is exactly what lets it eventually just rocket upwards and dominate the entire forest. So, let's test that idea real quick. If a redwood tree lives for 500 years, when do you think its most dramatic, visible growth happens? In the first 5 years, the first 50, or in the final 50 years of its life? The answer is C. Just like with investing, the most explosive, mind-bending growth happens at the very end, and it's all built on centuries of that slow, steady, boring work.
But this isn't just about starting early. It's also about never stopping. I mean, what if you're not a brilliant investor? What if you're just okay? Well, it turns out that consistency is way more important than these random flashes of genius.
Okay, take a look at this race. Investor A is the tortoise, just plugging along, getting a steady, pretty good 7% return every single year. Investor B is the hare. He's this volatile genius who has these incredible years, up 30%, but then they're followed by down years where he loses 10%. Now, for the first 20 years or so, Investor B looks like an absolute rock star. He is crushing it. But those down years, they interrupt the compounding. And over 50 years, the slow, steady, uninterrupted compounding of Investor A leaves Investor B completely in the dust. It's not even close. And this brings us to what might be the single most important definition in all of finance. Good investing is not about earning the highest possible returns. It's about earning pretty good returns that you can stick with and can therefore compound for the longest possible period of time. It's a game of survival and endurance.
So we've looked at the math. We've gone through the analogies. Intellectually, you might be nodding your head, thinking, yeah, I get it. But knowing it and truly believing it, well, those are two totally different things. The real battle isn't on a spreadsheet. It's right inside your own head.
The math behind all this is simple enough for a fifth grader to understand, but to really internalize it, to truly believe that these tiny, consistent actions today will lead to some unbelievable result decades from now, man, that is the hard part. It means you have to look at that slow, boring, unimpressive start and choose to believe in that exponential curve, even when every single instinct you have is screaming for bigger, faster, immediate results.
So what's the path forward? First, you just have to accept the uncomfortable, unintuitive math. Just accept that the curve is real. Second, you embrace consistent action, and you start recognizing that time, not brilliant timing, is your single greatest asset. And that brings us to the final and most important step, mastering yourself.
And that leads us to the final question. You now understand the physics of building wealth, the power of time and consistency, but there is one more crucial piece to the puzzle. What is the next essential concept you absolutely must master to make sure you don't get in your own way and break that compounding chain? The answer is mastering your own behavior. And that, well, that's a topic for another day.